Today on Energy Contact. Sometimes people describe a corporate office or a technology office as the nerve center of the organization. They do that with electronic devices too, phone hubs and circuit boards, motherboards, internet, things like that. All of these things get compared and likened to the switches and signals that go through our body. And when we hear about them, we nod. But maybe we shouldn't, because most of us don't understand how nerves communicate within our bodies. Well, today we're going to learn a little bit more about that, and we're going to learn it from an energetic perspective. And we're going to see a little bit about what it has to do with our spines, our brains, and our core. It's coming up right now on Energy Contact.
I'm gonna drive away all these doubts I've been keeping and doubt. Keep my mind on better things. He ain't gonna worry and I ain't gonna complain. I'm gonna drive away all these doubts I've been keeping and doubt. Keep my mind on better things. Just keep my mind on better things.
Hello, and welcome to Energy Contact. My name is Joseph Willenbrink. Thank you for joining me today, and thank you to the production staff here in the studio for helping me get my message out to you. Energy Contact is a series I'm providing as a public service. It's about attaining perfect health, growth, self-improvement, happiness, and it's about realizing your full potential. It's designed to present you a new way of seeing yourself and a new way of seeing the world around you. We're talking about things that have to do with making an energetic contact with yourself internally and with your environment. There's no difference between the body, the mind, the spirit, the emotion, the intellect, the ego. There's no difference between mass and energy. We love to categorize and classify, but there's just no difference. The more we look, the more that we see these things are really all the same. And so, that health and self-improvement and growth all take place at the interface, take place where we make that unseen energetic world contact this physical self. We're presenting on this program a brand new paradigm that's thousands of years old. We're presenting extraordinary topics for ordinary people. And let's move right ahead with that and put up the first slide. Everyone, please know that I am not a doctor. Don't want to be a doctor. I do not give medical advice. I might call myself an energy healer or a chakra healer. So might a lot of other people. But state, federal, and local governments do not. There's a lot of important information up there on your screen right now, so we're going to leave it up for a little bit. And I'll ask you to read it with awareness. And after you've got it down, I'll ask you another favor. If you would, please locate a pencil and paper. At the end of this show, we're going to roll the credits. And when those credits roll up, there's going to be contact information on there for me. I encourage you to contact me. I hope you will. But in order to do that, you're going to have my contact information. In order to get that down, you're going to need a pencil and paper. It's not up there for a real long time. So if you start looking for the pencil, then it might be too late. Alrighty, so let's come back here. Today's show is show number 24. And if you're tuning in for the first time, thank you. Thank you and welcome. There's going to be plenty of information on this show that'll be of great value to you. I think you'll be glad you tuned in. These shows are sequential. They build. So we are talking about things here that we've introduced and explained on previous shows. But I'm also doing my very best to make this show have standalone value and to explain everything, at least briefly, that needs to be explained, and so on and so forth. So, if what you see piques your interest, if you are watching for one of your first times today, well, thank you for that too. And please look for previous shows airing at later times. Sometimes previous shows air here in this neighborhood, and sometimes in other cable neighborhoods perhaps where your friends live. And now, it's my great pleasure to introduce my co-host to you. This is Slim. Since we're investigating what it is that energy contacts in the physical self, we have to know a couple of things, don't we? we have to know something about energy. And this is a show about energy. But we also have to know a little something about the physical self. Well, Slim is here to help us understand that interface. Remember, a body without energy is a corpse. Energy without a body, well, it might be a number of cool things, but it's not a human. What makes us fully human and fully alive is where energy contacts the physical self. All right. So previously on Energy Contact, we have been talking about that a whole lot, haven't we? We've been talking about the body intellect. We've been talking about how thought builds anatomy, how we are creations of our own thought, in fact, how that body intellect builds us. We've seen that we have all these bones like my buddy Slim has, but that they are not the framework and the girders that hold us together. Not at all. In fact, it's us that hold the skeleton together. So what they told us in grade school is upside down and backwards. As a matter of fact, the reason that Slim needs bolts and screws is because he doesn't have the muscles and the ligaments and the other things to hold him together. And we have learned about all of those internal forces and all those external forces which activate us and motivate us and work within and from without onto us. The internal forces, breath, heartbeat, rhythm, pulse, vibration, frequency, wave, all of these things, the forces that animate us. And the external forces, primarily we've seen it in the context of gravity, entropy, and energy. The things from the outside that push and pull us around a little bit, the kisses and hugs, the bumps and bruises of life. We've learned that until we make our pain go away, we can't think of much else. Until our most basic need is met, really nothing else much matters. And this is the reason that so many people go through their life without getting healthy, without growing, without doing all of those good things, because at some level or nothing, or some level or other, they can't move on past their pain. That's a profound statement at many levels. For now, we're going to leave it right there. We've spoken a little bit about Kundalini energy, that mysterious, mystical energy that the old Indians talked about years ago. And we've observed what all of this has to do with our core, and how our core is the basis of ourself. Well, today, we're still looking at how energy moves upward from our core. It moves upward past our main horizontal structure and through our main vertical structure. We've spent a long time looking at what's going on inside our pelvis, and we've learned that energy falls up, so now we're moving up with it. We're moving up with it through our spines. And today, we're going to move past some of the basic descriptive stuff, some of the structural things we've been talking about our spine, because we're going to see that the spine is doing more than just holding us upright, or failing to hold us upright, as the case might be. We want to understand more of that control system, that switch box function that is also located right there inside of our spines. And we want to see what this has to do with energy flow. And ultimately, we want to get to the understanding of how we block up those energy flows so that we can learn what we're doing to block it and stop doing that, so that we can allow our spine to facilitate that upward flow of that mysterious Kundalini energy. All right, but now it's the time in our show where we visualize. It's time to take our virtual field trip like we do every show. And today, we're going to have some fun. We're going to go back through time just a little bit, just back to the 60s. We are going shopping in the 60s. The reason we have to go back to the 60s is we're going back to the time before there were MasterCards and Visas, before there was data systems like we have now. Matter of fact, before there were desktop computers. What? No Visas, no MasterCards, no personal computers? Well, what was there then? Well, there were pens and pencils and adding machines and ledger paper and carbon paper, all sorts of paper, and there were little men with green visors on their heads that took those pencils and wrote on those papers. That's what we're looking at today. We're going shopping back in the time when those guys and that system ruled. But there was a newfangled invention in the system in the 60s. It was called the pneumatic tube. And the store we're going to today has pneumatic tubes. So here we are. We have an account at this store, and we go to make our purchase, and we tell the cashier that we're going to put that purchase on our account. So she says, okay, and she writes up our invoice on paper, and she puts it in this thing that sort of looks like the tall Parmesan cheese canisters in an Italian restaurant. And she pops it in there, and she stuffs it in this pipe. And this pipe is a pneumatic tube. And it's like putting it in a vacuum cleaner hose. And the minute she stuffs it in there, it goes up in the air and disappears from our sight. Well, where does it go? Well, in some unseen room in the back, it plops down in the desk in front of one of those guys with the green visors. He looks at it, checks it all out, and everything's good. So there we are, waiting a few minutes up by the cashier. And then all of a sudden we hear boom, and there's this loud bang. And this cylinder has returned, coming back through the other direction of the pneumatic tube. So the guys checked our account status. It's good. He's put his initials on it to indicate that. The message been sent. The message been received. It's been returned. We've received it again. The cashier takes it, hands us our copy, hands us our merchandise, and we roll on. All right, so let's leave our story for a second. And we're going to come back, take a little quantum leap to the two main structures in our physical cells. We're going to take a look at them on Slim here. Those two main structures are our pelvis and our spine. And here they are. Let's see if we can get Slim into the picture here. Our pelvis is our main horizontal structure. Our spine is our main vertical structure. We are obviously vertical beings, huh? So this is thicker and stronger, but a lot smaller in size. So there we are. We can see here, we've got these bungee cords here. These are going to be erector spinae muscles that we're going to talk about in a little bit. And also, I'm going to get my other set of muscles. And you can see in the front of Slim that all this is managed by these muscles that go right through here. And these muscles are the psoas muscles that we've seen before. As a matter of fact, we're going to see them again right now. Let's pull up the next slide and we'll take a peek at our psoas muscles like we've seen before. There they are. So you can see there, those diagonal muscles are the psoas muscles supporting that spine. Can you see how they work? It's like the ropes on the bottom of the tent, the ropes that you stake into the ground on the bottom of a tent. They support the top of the tent from the bottom, and it works perfectly. Well, that's how that psoas is working. But take a second before we move on and look at that spine in the middle of that right side of your screen. You notice how it's not the same color as the rest of the bones? It's white. And just keep a mental note of that, because next show we're going to look more at that. And then we're going to look at a second at those other muscles, those bungee cords that go all the way up the spine, that serve not to support it, but to stabilize it. We'll review them in just a second. But for now, let's come back up here, and we're going to do some building. I'm going to present another model of our spine. We'll have these guys up for just a second. This is always a slight temptation of fate. But we have no fear here on the Energy Contact television show. So, this is our spine. It's basically a model of the spine. You notice that these CD cases are grooved. So they fit, they seat right into each other. Well, so are the vertebrae of our spine. These spools have no trouble whatsoever staying on top of each other. Well, what holds this top spool steady up here? Muscles? No. Ligaments? No. None of those things. What holds it up there is gravity. And if we stock these things away for years and years, when we come back, it'll be sitting there just that way, It won't get tired because it's not working to hold itself up. It's just standing there cooperating with gravity. Now just a minute ago I was mentioning the support muscles. So I'm going to dismantle my spine very quickly. And then we are going to talk a little bit about those. Really today, it's not our goal to talk about structure. It's not the purpose of our show. But we have to get through some of this structure to get to what is the purpose. So we have those stabilizing muscles that run up our spine. You saw a minute ago the bungee cords on Slim. Well, let's bring up the next slide, and you'll see them in a little bit more of a med school diagram there. Those vertical muscles that are going up there like belts and bands, those are the erector spinae muscles. And they function like the bungee cords, not to support the load of our upper back, but to stabilize it. They're too weak to hold the spine up structurally, but that's okay. It's not their job. Although we get into trouble because we misuse them that way. We misuse them that way regularly. But do you think your spine is just those bones and bungee cords? I don't think so. There's a lot more going on besides just that. Let's come back here. Like I said, our main focus isn't structure today, but we're going to see what effect structure has on that. And right now we're going to look briefly at that chain reaction, So what happens when we misuse those erector spinae muscles? What happens is this. Well, first, we get out of touch with our core. That causes these psoas muscles to over-tighten. I'm going to give you a little bit of a profile here. You can do this with me at home. These things over-tighten. It pulls our spines down. Now all of a sudden we're not up straight. So we use our erector spinae muscles to pull us up straight, but that's not what they're designed for. But also, this contracting psoas muscle is pulling our rib cage down over our diaphragm, and it's collapsing over our lungs, so we can't breathe. And breath is life. You think that's bad? Well, it's getting worse, because also what's happening is this rib cage pulls down, it pulls down our scalene muscles in our neck, and it pulls our pec muscles in. And all of a sudden we're like this, and then we think, wait, I'm not standing up straight. So do we release our psoas? No. We pull back on these erector spinae muscles, and they pull back even more. And after years and years of doing that, they just give out because they're doing something they aren't designed for. It's like the old elastic on an old pair of underwear. They just give out. And that's why you see so many people in advanced years with bent over spines. And it yields the aches and pains even before that happens. All those aches and pains we've been discussing on previous shows. Our low and mid back hurt because these muscles overpull. And our upper back hurts and our neck because not only does the psoas muscle overpull, but the erector spinae muscles are tweaked out, and all of that stuff that comes from energy falling up just builds up momentum as it comes. And serious deformities then result. The kyphosis and the lordosis, things we've talked about before, scary things. All right, and so if your method for managing your pain is to go to the medicine cabinet, you're messing up because that pain's trying to tell you something. If you need an aspirin, for goodness sake, take it, but don't numb yourself to the message. Message? What message? Well, hang on. Because you see, that's the structure, but now we want to get away from that structure a little bit and look at the other stuff going on. Structurally, our spines aren't much more complex than this CD stack that we had. But up till now, we've been glossing over something very important. Let's bring up the next slide. At the top of all that spine and erector spinae and stuff pulling, hey, there's a brain up there. Up there at the business end of all that, up there at the receiving end, the tail end of all that stuff that's been falling up, we got a brain up there. And the way we think is quite literally molded by our body before our brain even engages. So when you go to that medicine cabinet to numb your aching back, you are numbing your brain as well. Go back to that chain reaction. Do you think it makes a difference to that brain, what's been going on with all those compressions and all those unnatural contortions? Well, yeah, I think it does. Remember that energy falls up. This brain is a big subject. and we're not going to talk about most of it today, but we want to address what I'm going to call a very spinal segment of it. Let's come on back here. There is plenty of stuff going on with your brain and your spine besides intellect and structure. The brain and the spine are also the location of most of the nervous system, and that's what we want to look at a little bit today. Let's bring up the next slide for a second. The nervous system in general can be thought of as the chief coordinating energy of all the body parts and function. Not coordination like athletic agility, although that's certainly involved there, but it's more like the function of the orchestra conductor. It's the complex system of pneumatic tubes. And you can see on the left side of that picture that there's a brain and something that resembles a spine there, but if you look close, you're going to see there's no vertebrae. The spine itself is not on that picture. That's the other stuff that goes with it. So right there, that picture looks a little bit like a snake. That nervous system is what allows the body to continually adapt to all the internal and external stimuli that are always going on. And we're going to look at that. We're going to come back to that slide in just a second, but for right now, let's come back up here. So, if you guys are being real astute, you'll notice that I mentioned internal and external stimuli. And you're thinking, wait, I've been watching this show for a long time. He's spoken about that stuff before. Well, I have. It's taken us back to our very early episodes of Energy Contact. Remember when we talked about these things? Remember, we looked at a live person and a dead person, and we wanted to see what was present in one that was missing in the other. And we figured it out. There were the internal forces, the forces that animate us: breath, heartbeat, rhythm, wave, pulse, vibration, frequency. And those things were being acted upon by external forces, by gravity and by entropy. Well, the nerves and the nervous system are the brain, pun intended, of how our body manages all of those forces, all of those internal forces and all those external forces, all of those ever-changing phenomena that we refer to as stimuli. You ever hear a professor talk about nerves, he'll talk about stimuli. What are stimuli? They are the bumps and the bruises, the kisses and the hugs of life. Okay, so if the nerves are communicating all this, how does this communication take place, huh? Well, guess what? It takes place in a series of pulses, rhythms, waves, frequencies, vibrations. It's the internal forces that animate us. Along with the breath, it's all this stuff that we've been talking since the very beginning of our programs here. It's the quantum motion that Einstein spoke about. It's the Kundalini motion that the old yogis understood. Cool, huh? Now that we know that, let's learn a little anatomy. And let's put that slide right back up there again. There it is, the nervous system. According to any elementary anatomy text, there are two basic divisions of the nervous system. There's the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. Don't get lost in these terms. We're going to see, in fact, that boiling it down to two systems is incorrect, but hang on to that thought. The central nervous system and the spinal cord, or the central nervous system rather, includes the brain and the spinal cord. That's where it is. And we'll talk more about the spinal cord and the central nervous system next show. But the peripheral nervous system is usually defined as, quote, all of the nerves outside the central nervous system. Well, that's a cop-out answer, don't you think? Let's go to the next slide, because we are interested in the peripheral nervous system. And the peripheral nervous system is comprised mainly of the autonomic nervous system, which is here. Look at that picture. Man, there is a lot of stuff going on there. There are things controlling all of these functions in our body. They map out to all that. Check out all that activity. The same textbook will say that all of this stuff is really going on without your conscious brain participating at all. Really? All right, let's come back up here. And you saw that that autonomic system consists of two parts, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. We'll explain that just a little bit. Again, don't get lost in the terms. The sympathetic system is all the stuff, it's managed subconsciously or unconsciously, according to text, but it's all the stuff that happens when you're awake. It's all the involuntary actions and the stress reactions and the fight or flight reactions and all the things that keep us going, keep us alert. What about that parasympathetic system? Well, it's the unwind process. It's the detox process. The parasympathetic system is what happens when we rest. It's what happens when we sleep, when we meditate, when we relax, when we let go. It's the repair and recharge system. If we're healthy, it tells those shoulders to come down. It tells the food to digest. It generates peace. Most of us get stuck with the first system, and we never get into the second one. All right, so that's the parasympathetic and the sympathetic system. Until a few years ago, anatomy texts would say that's all there is. And then maybe some more advanced texts would refer to this system of ganglia. Ganglia just means little switches, switch boxes, that are in our intestines. Just recently, we have learned that this stuff in our intestines is sort of an equal player. It's called the enteric autoimmune system. So there's a part of the peripheral system that is neither in our brain or in our spine. Where is it then? Oh my goodness, it's in our core. So there it is in our core, attached to our spine, attached to our brain through a set of signals, pulses, rhythms, vibrations, frequencies. We've just figured it out. It's Kundalini energy. How did those yogis know about it 8,000 years ago, and why has it taken us so long to figure it out, to listen to them? Hang on a second, because I think my mind is boggled here. We might have to stop right here until our next breath, until next week, so I can catch my breath, because all those pulses are going on, all those rhythms are happening. And life is rhythm and pulse and vibration and frequency. And I do need to catch my breath. And breath is life. And so, I'll leave you on that note. Until next time, I wish you peace and positive energy and a healthy life in Energy Contact.